All right, welcome to the Party Pals GRC Mafia. How's everybody doing? We are back to Monday, it looks like. I hope everybody's having a great Monday so far. I see Jeffrey, Cam, B-Does, Rania popping in chat already. First out the gate, we want to definitely mention that we're here to break down barriers, foster collaboration and community, working towards a more secure future together. Definitely a learning and growing environment. Now, during these sessions, we typically don't drop the stage link, but if you'd like to come up, I definitely want to give everybody the option to do so. Just let me know if you do want to come up and ask a question or talk about a particular topic or otherwise. If you do come up, you do not have to turn on your video. Just the mic will do. Whether you're in chat or otherwise, definitely ask questions, share resources. If you would like to share your LinkedIn profile or other social media, the best place to do that is inside of our Discord server. So if you head on over to our Discord server, you can click on our live chat channel, post links there, including your social media. That's the best place to do that. Also, don't share anything that you don't want to be public. If you happen to do so, just reach out to me on LinkedIn or Discord. You can also contact me at contact@studygrc.org. Now, also, definitely check out our website as well for the other platforms that we stream to. And also on our website, studygrc.org, for the calendar and the resources page as well. So the calendar has the most up-to-date information. Welcome to the party, pal, Ben Tech. And of course, we also have B-Dubs' website. So B-Dubs not only pushes out an article every single Monday, but then also on top of that is doing the CISSP study group as well. You guys will also see the link for the donations. I don't want anybody to feel obligated to do so, but we did open that up as well. There's also the merch shop as well. I'm horrible at pushing that kind of stuff in the first place, but that's why I have to put it up in the notes. I hope everybody's having a great day. Today we will be continuing with our CISO Assistant on the CSF 2.0 initial compliance to see where we're at and what we need to do to not only tailor out the controls that we're not going to work with, but then also what do we need to be compliant? What are we going to do to with CSF here? And I'm going to go ahead and transition over here. So I have this up real quick because this is the latest article from B-Dubs. So patch or get owned or get pwned. Get owned as well. Vulnerability Management 101. Discover the essential guide to vulnerability management that helps organizations identify, assess, and patch security weaknesses. But hey, that's not all. There's also the read-along that goes with each and every single one of these articles as well. So definitely check that out. And B-Dubs isn't even a sponsor. All right. And then here we are with the CISO Assistant again. And I went ahead and opened this up. So this is underneath our compliance and then audits. And this is what we've been working on. So we went through, we did the not applicable. We went through on the partially compliant. And then now what we're working on is the non-compliant. And then let's go ahead and knock this out here. So with this filter applied and so forth, you can see here all of these to-dos. So these to-dos are the ones that we actually have to work on today and tomorrow. Tomorrow, what the plan is to finalize this out because next week we're going to start working on the policies like we were talking about. So tomorrow we'll go through and we'll actually export this in multiple formats. And we'll also see how we're going to utilize this moving forward. So I'm going to go ahead and pop open the first one here. So I'm not worried about any in progress, just the ones to do, not compliant. Technically, the only thing I'm worried about is the to do. And so it looks like we got several in here, 4 different ones under to do for incident management. Let me double check this chat too. We also got Regine popping in as well. B-Dub saying not a sponsor, but I donate time rather than money. Yes, that's very true. Very true. And then Ranya's over here lurking. All right. Yeah, and if you guys have any questions along the way, definitely drop those in chat. Or even if you have a different type of question and so forth as well. All right. So this very first one that we're going to do from the bottom up, just out of preference, So the criteria for initiating incident recovery are applied. So one of the examples is apply incident recovery criteria to known and assumed characteristics of the incident to determine whether incident recovery processes should be initiated. Example 2 for it is take possible operational disruption of incident recovery activities into account. Not only IT popping in, GRC Mafia. All right, so take possible operational disruption of incident recovery activities into account. The criteria for initiating incident recovery are applied. So the definition, so we have to define all right, so we have to customize the recovery process is kind of what I'm seeing out of this, is what I'm understanding from this in the incident recovery process, and whether or not that should be initiated based on the incident that occurred. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. That is something that we would still have to define, like, oh, okay, our recovery process is this if this happens. I guess that would be similar to playbooks. So that's going to be not compliant, in progress. Documentation does not exist, which is what we're going to be working on. All right, and then we got to reapply these filters as well. I'm actually going to leave all of those on, but I'm just going to focus on the to-do, because the last section that we have is this non-compliant. 75% not compliant. And so we're just trying to fill out these to-dos here. All right, and then this next one is incidences are categorized and prioritized. So an example is further review and categorize incidences based on type of incident. So data breach, ransomware, DDoS, account compromise. That's something else that we would have to also put on paper. Example 2 is prioritize incidences based on their scope, likely impact, and time critical nature. Yeah, so both of those first two examples we should implement. And so then we need to have something in our incident response plan that says, hey, if we have multiple issues, especially multiple incidences, then we need to prioritize that. So if there's an account takeover and our websites being DDoSed or whatever, what's going to take priority there? That's definitely going to be the account takeover. So not compliant, in progress, no documentation exists. I'm going to go ahead and fix this filter again. And then this next one here, incident reports are triaged and validated. So example 1 is going to be primarily review incident reports to confirm that they are cybersecurity related and necessitate incident response activities. Apply criteria to estimate the severity of an incident. All right. So again, we need to go through, verify, and so forth as well. This is part of the incident response. And so this is talking about the incident reports in particular. So we need to actually have that like in the template. So we should develop an incident response template or incident reports, and make sure that we go through with a validation process, and then also like what is the triage. So in progress, not compliant, no documentation. Applying these filters again. And yeah, definitely let me know if you have any questions or otherwise. I am going to go through these a little bit quick because I do want to keep these to about an hour, and we do have quite a few of these to go through. 60 of them. So we have 60 to go through today. That's what it shows. So the incident response plan is executed in coordination with relevant third parties once an incident is declared. Example 1 is detection technologies automatically report confirmed incidences, request incident response assistance from the organization's incident response outsourcer. Example 3, designate an incident lead for each incident. So maybe we have a third party for that, or we need to designate a lead for that. But this is also talking about working with coordination with relevant third parties once an incident is declared. So this is another thing that we would have to actually document, that, you know, what is the communication, especially if there's third parties involved within our incident response plan. So this is going to be another one in progress. Oh, and see, you can see we actually already did that one. I just didn't update it. There might be several of these where I didn't update it properly. All right. Applying the filter again. All right, now detect adverse effect analysis. Incidences are declared when adverse effects meet the defined criteria. I think that's another one that I filled out. That's definitely going to be a to-do as well. Moving that to in progress. So incidences are declared when adverse effects meet the defined incident criteria. I believe we did talk about that one as well. So maybe there's several that I didn't mark the in progress on. So we need to actually define. So we were talking before on one of the previous videos about defining the incident criteria. So what is actually an incident? All right, cyber threat intelligence and other contextual information are integrated into the analysis. So an example of this would be to securely provide cyber threat intelligence feeds to detection technologies, processes, and personnel. Example 2 is securely provide information from asset inventories to detection technologies, processes, and personnel. Example 3 is going to be rapidly acquire and analyze vulnerability disclosures for the organization's technologies from suppliers, vendors, and third-party security advisors. All right. Now, the cyber threat intelligence is something that's typically out of quite reach for a small business, typically. But this is also talking about other contextual information as well. So maybe we do a level of OSINT or something along those lines that's involved with that. And then this is also talking about securely provide information from asset inventories, for an example, for detection technologies, processes, and personnel. That's something that we could do. So this is another one where even though our cyber threat intelligence capabilities may be hindered, we could still become compliant with this by sharing information and having processes in place. And there is a level of automations we could implement as well. So to do, and then this next one, so adverse effects, events analysis, 04, the estimated impact and scope of adverse effects are understood. So example 1 is use SIMs or other tools to estimate impact and scope and review and refine the estimates. Example 2 is a person creates their own estimates of impact and scope. So whether we have a tool that does it or we have a person who goes through and estimates the impact and scope of adverse effects, either or would work. And so that's going to be another one in progress. No documentation exists. Bam. All right, fixing this filter again. So information is correlated from multiple sources. All right. So example 1 here is going to be constantly transfer log data generated by other sources to a relevantly small number of log servers, use event correlation technology such as a SIM to collect information captured by multiple sources, or utilize cyber threat intelligence to help correlate events among log sources. Welcome to the party, pal, Yalamed. GRC Mafia. All right, so this is going to be another one in progress. So it's talking about correlating all of the sources into one, which is what, you aggregate all of these different logs to a SIM, for an example. That's one portion of this as well. But there's multiple different ways that this can go about as too. So we could even technically set up automations using one of our other tools or otherwise with this as well. So I'm going to go ahead and save that one. All right. And then now we're moving on to the detect function, continuous monitoring. So computing hardware and software runtime environments and their data are monitored to find potential adverse effects. All right. So maybe this is talking about some type of like antivirus, EDR, things like that. It's talking about monitoring runtime environments, the data, and the software and hardware being monitored for potential adverse effects. So example 1 is monitor email, web, file sharing, collaboration services, and other common attack vectors to detect malware, phishing, data leaks, and exfiltration, and other adverse effects. Example 2 is monitor authentication attempts to identify attacks against credentials and unauthorized credential reuse. Example 3 is monitor software configurations for deviations from security baselines. Example 4 is monitor hardware and software for signs of tampering. And example 5, use technologies with a presence on endpoints to detect cyber health issues. So this is a really important one too. Now this is a little bit more difficult, as I talked about before, is Steady GRC, small nonprofit business organization. So all of our devices are bring your own device. So it does make that a little bit more difficult to have something on device, especially. Now maybe we could do a requirement of like a VPN connection is required that then gets filtered and tracked. There definitely is the business email that we could watch and monitor, along with our file sharing and other services as well. So we could, at a minimum, be partially compliant with this. So in progress, no documentation exists. Currently, yeah, and so it's talking about, yeah, monitoring these. Yeah, so currently no monitoring. No monitoring exists. Processes should be implemented. Welcome to the party, pal, Cool Breeze. All right, applying the filter again here. All right, and then external service provider activities and services are monitored to find potentially adverse effects or potentially adverse events. Example would be monitor remote on-site administration and maintenance activities that external providers perform on organizational systems. Example 2 is monitor activity from cloud-based services, internet service providers, and other service providers for deviations from expected behavior. All right, so this is watching our third parties and monitoring them for potential adverse events. So this is going to be a little bit more difficult because, like, the third parties that we do have, I mean, we have very limited insight too. So it's going to be difficult to monitor. Now, there are some of the services that we use that do have APIs, for an example, that we could, set up automations for notification if there's, too many login attempts, or, something like that happens, or like even like with Restream, for an example, we could be notified if we go live, which would be potentially a sign of an adverse effect if like we're not supposed to be going live. B-dubs. And so this is something that I'm going to go ahead and mark as in progress as well, because I don't believe that we would be able to necessarily be fully compliant with this, but we could at least become partially compliant. So monitoring. So I'm going to go ahead and put no documentation exists. Monitoring what we can should be implemented. Bam. All right, now on to this next one. So the physical environment is monitored to find potentially adverse effects. So this is physical, which again, like I had talked about before, is it's all bring your own device and so forth. And especially on that physical environment, when you're operating a 100% remote, bring your own device type of organization, that environmental factor definitely becomes an issue. We have people from Florida, Texas, Mississippi, North Dakota. So yeah, not only does it make it incredibly difficult from a physical protection standpoint for physical controls, but then also on top of that, environmental. So examples here is monitor logs from physical access control systems, badge readers. That would not really apply to us. For deviations of the norm and failed access attempts. Example 2 is review and monitor physical access records from visitor registration, sign-in sheets, etc. Example 3, monitor physical access controls, locks, latches, hinge pins, alarms for signs of tampering. Example 4, monitor the physical environment using alarm systems, cameras, and security guards. So there's a limit of what we could do physically anyways, even if Study GRC had its own devices. There are like intrusion switches that you could put into a device to, in case if it was potentially tampered with the case being opened or otherwise. There's some other telltale signs as well that you could implement, but this overall is probably actually something that we're not going to be doing at all. So yeah, not applicable. And then I'm going to mark this one as done. So does not apply to business, does not apply to our environment. Bam. All right. And then let me move back over here. B-Dub says, whoa, I feel personally attacked. We learned a valuable lesson that day. My body easily goes into fight or flight mode, and it's going to pick flight every time. I believe B-Dubs may be referring to her go live incident, a 45-minute live stream that some of you may have gotten a notification for. All right. So to do, let's go ahead and narrow that down again. Networks and network services are monitored to find potentially adverse effects. So this is like monitoring DNS, BGP, and other network services for adverse effects, monitoring wired and wireless networks for connections from unauthorized endpoints, monitor facilities for unauthorized or rogue wireless networks, compare actual network flows against baselines to detect deviations. So, and this last one, so example 5, monitor network communications to identify changes in security postures for zero trust purposes. So this is another really important one too, but it does make it a lot more difficult. Now, again, if we had our own devices or otherwise, or maybe in the policies, we should actually dictate. Oh, did I say 45 minutes? I meant 45 seconds. But yeah. I mean, I think B-Dub should go live more often, but that's just me. So So this does make it a little bit more difficult. Although if we had our own devices, that's something where we could actually install that on the device to where it has a set DNS. It has, some type of monitoring software on it and so forth as well. This one I'm going to go ahead and just mark as done and not applicable because it's not going to really apply. So difficult at current maturity. Bring your own device. And I'm going to save that one out. Yeah, I probably did say 45 minutes, but yeah. I mean, obviously you are pretty quickly peer pressured. Something else for those of you guys tuning in as well. I mean, we're kind of at a mid-roll at this point. But so you guys may have watched the recent occupational safety video from Matthew. I am in communication with him regarding an actual podcast. So several different people enjoyed it, provided great feedback and so forth. And occupational safety is not one of the things that is commonly talked about in the GRC space, even though it really should be. We should be taking that into account. Look at the NIST CSF. Look at 853 does have some stuff regarding that. But also the CIS and these other frameworks and so forth are more cybersecurity focused, governance focused, and they don't take into account the occupational safety side of things. Occupational safety has their own stuff. Definitely check out that video if you didn't already. But I'm trying to coordinate like a bi-weekly podcast type of thing where what apparently they call it in the occupational safety space is tool talks or toolbox talks. Let's see here. And also, I'll be publishing out a survey as well here this Friday or this Thursday. That was in regards, I believe it might have been Bentech who posted it in Discord asking a few different questions. I think it would be really awesome to send out a community-wide survey. All right. Now, just keep this in mind too. B-dubs is easily peer pressured. So yeah. Just tell her you want like a 5 days a week stream. B-dubs already has a YouTube channel. All right, so let's see. I got the to-do marked here. Cam mentions we call them tailgate talks. Tailgate talks would work. That would be pretty fun. Let's see. Adequate resource capacity to ensure availability is maintained. Example 1 is monitor usage of storage, power, compute, network bandwidth, and other resources. Forecast future needs and scale resources accordingly. Wow, that's going to be a difficult one to meet. Adequate resource capacity to ensure availability is maintained. Man, that is a really important one actually. So this could apply to maybe we deploy out a server in the future or otherwise as well. There could be other services or otherwise that may be hindered by availability. Now this, just because those examples that were provided do not directly apply to us, this is still a control that we should take seriously and try to implement. So this could be something to where we monitor like the resources that we do rely on, what their availability is. Maybe we need to increase our availability. We are focused on the CIA triad: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So to meet that availability standpoint, that also goes with incident response on, like, oh, Restream's not working. What the hell do we do now? So we need to have backup options. We need to have plan Bs, plan Cs, plan Ds, and so forth for that availability, especially based on priority. So like live streaming is a huge aspect of study GRC. So that needs to be prioritized to meet those demands. So I'm going to go ahead and mark this as in progress. This is going to be placed as not compliant. So no documentation exists. Availability based on, hold on. All right. Availability based on priority. And I could mark it based on importance, priority, and so forth. All right, so applied this filter again for the to-do section. We do still have, it says 50 more to go through, but I don't know about that. It didn't look like that many. All right, so under protect, then we also have mechanisms are implemented to achieve resilience requirements in normal and adverse situations. So avoid single points of failure in systems and infrastructure. That's kind of like what we were just talking about a moment ago, is single points of failure. Use load balancing to increase capacity and improve reliability. Use high availability components like redundant storage and power supplies to improve system reliability. So this is another thing to definitely take into account. So, and the examples are nothing more than just examples to give you an idea of like what they're even talking about. So like, even though those particular examples, again, would not directly apply to study GRC at our current status, you know, we need to have mechanisms for that availability for resilience in normal and adverse situations. And so this is what it all comes down to, is just being more resilient on our mission, being able to operate. The business operations cannot be hindered. And we need to take what we can. We need to do what we can now before an incident does occur or some adverse situation, as it states here. So that way we're more prepared at that time. So I'm going to mark as not compliant. I'm going to go ahead and put in here that single points of failure need to be identified and addressed. No existing documentation. Yeah, and that should work for now. In progress, not compliant. Bam. All right. So then moving on to this next one here. I think this is one that we already went through because it's marked as not applicable. So the organization's technology assets are protected from environmental threats. Yeah, that's, well, and let me go back because I feel like protected is a strong word. So if we look at this one, the organization's technology assets are protected from environmental threats. An example of this would be protect organizational equipment from known environmental threats such as flooding, fire, wind, and excessive heat and humidity. Example 2 is include protection from environmental threats and provisions for adequate operating infrastructure in requirements for service providers that operate systems on the organization's behalf. So now when we think about this and so forth, it's talking about protecting the assets from environmental threats. It sounds to me like it's talking more about that physical aspect of the actual asset itself. Like if we had a device and so forth, we need to take precautions to protect it from those environmentals. Although, you know, what I was kind of thinking is like, oh, well, if we just have an automatic backup system, you know, like all of the files are synced to the cloud automatically, then, you know, that's a mitigating control to an extent. So then if something did happen to the device, then, you know, we're not completely screwed on that. Although I still don't believe that that would meet this requirement for IR02 because it's talking about those environmental threats. So even if a fire did occur, you know, that device would still be annihilated. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to actually mark this as done, not applicable still. So I'm just going to put bring your own device along with no physical location, no location, no physical location exists, all remote work. Bam. All right, so moving on to this next one here. Now we have networks and environments are protected from unauthorized logical access and usage. So an example of this would be logically segment organization, networks, and cloud-based platforms according to trust boundaries and platform types. So that's IT, IoT, OT, mobile, guest, and permit required communications only between segments. Logically, example 2, logically segment organization networks from external networks and permit only necessary communications to enter the organization's networks from the external networks. Example 3 is implement zero trust architectures to restrict network access to each resource to the minimum necessary. Example 4 is check the cyber health of endpoints before allowing them to access and use production resources. So this is another difficult one when we're looking at this. Now, there are some different things we could also do. Maybe we restrict our staff to only be able to access resources when connected to our VPN, or otherwise there's some stuff we could do with this. But again, doing this like logical segmentation, that is on the network side. So a less studied GRC is going to be financing network switches for the board and volunteers and so forth. That's going to definitely be difficult to handle. So this is going to be another one that I'm going to go ahead. And so it's talking about networks and environments are protected from unauthorized logical access. So this is actually one I'm probably going to go ahead and mark as in progress, because this also applies in the cloud. So I'm going to mark it as in progress, not compliant. So no documentation. So no documentation currently exists. All right. But then I'm going to go ahead and mark this out. So applies to cloud. Applies to cloud. And then what we'll most likely have to do is do exemptions to say, oh, you know, our physical bring your own devices are not of priority to this. We're going to do an exemption for that. What we're primarily utilizing this control for is going to be cloud platform, SaaS, things like that. What we can. Bring your own destruction wrong. Yeah. Yes, exactly, Cool Breeze. And I am an advocate against bring your own device, although, especially for small business, it is just not feasible. So we're 40 minutes in. How's everybody doing? GRC Mafia. Again, so as a reminder, we're knocking out these ones here. We have about 47 more to do. I'm going to probably go through like a flash round here to try to knock a lot more of these out. Tomorrow is our plan to finalize this, and then starting next Monday and Tuesday, we'll be working on those policies. So definitely moving forward pretty rapidly. All right, and I have this filter applied for just the to-do. All right, so, oh yeah, you can see here that these are not applicable. So these are ones that I've already actually addressed. So I'm going to go ahead and actually mark all of these ones as done here. So the ones that are not applicable, that was actually the first ones that we did. So I just didn't apply these properly as status done. And hopefully more of these are like that too, where I just didn't mark the status properly. All right, now we have those ones not compliant. I'm going to double check these other ones. So here's another one that's not applicable. So not applicable, done, save. So Bobby over on LinkedIn, this is a free and open source software tool called CISO Assistant. And so I'll drop the link in chat, although LinkedIn does not allow, it doesn't integrate very well, and the LinkedIn chat is really bad. So I would recommend coming over to the YouTube side if possible, but it's called CISO Assistant. And it's a free open source tool. So you can set this up on Docker. You could easily deploy this in the cloud and so forth. We have videos with the co-founders that set that up. They did a live stream showcasing how easy it is to deploy locally on a Docker or in the cloud as well. The reason we're using this is not only is it free and open source, but also this is better than some of the paid software out there. And they have their community edition with over 90% of the different tools in it. But then they also have their enterprise version, which is $45 per user, I believe. And even that, yes, that's correct, Bobby. CISO Assistant, just like you said. But yeah, it's a great tool and so forth. One of the best things I love about it is that because of the community edition, it makes it available for small and medium businesses that don't have very much budget to spend on their program. And not only that, but then also especially for the small business, this really opens up their eyes on like, oh, maybe we should document third parties. Oh, maybe we should go through and, have our policies in here. Oh, maybe we should review those on a regular basis. And it also makes especially that small business think about different aspects that are built in here on like, oh, since it's here, we should probably use it. So yeah, definitely a really awesome tool. Highly recommended. And you could literally use it for free. Yeah, it's a really awesome tool. And they also have multiple different exports, all kinds of different stuff. I highly recommend checking out our video on it. They did a complete demo for us. And then also, if you go to their website as well, then you can, I dropped the link on the YouTube side here. Because if you go to their website, you can also sign up for a 45-day free trial or otherwise as well. That just like automatically deploys. So all kinds of different awesome stuff. And it's under active development. And the team is freaking incredible who's behind this. All right, so pushing through the rest of this here. Let me go ahead and filter this out. So we're focused on not compliant. So I'm going to go ahead and apply everything else here. Yeah, so you could actually see here, we have 19 to do under govern for an example. So apparently, I think that's wrong. So it's only showing the 4. Oh yeah, see, so like compliant was another one that I had marked as to do. So I'm going to go ahead and mark this one as done. So that's in regards to our risk register. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and mark this out as well. So we did all of these other ones, not assessed, partially compliant, not applicable, compliant. So what we were focusing on is the non-compliant, but now I want to try to weed these out too, because that just seems like a large amount. So you could see here that there's still 15 under identify, it says, for to do. So you can see here, this is another one that was marked as to do, but we marked it as compliant. So assessed for risk impact, recorded and tracked. So that one I'm going to go ahead and mark as done, save. All right, and then, because like the number that we have here just seems pretty excessive here. So identify, this is another one not applicable. So cyber threat intelligence is received from information sharing forms and sources. So that one needs to be marked as done as well, because we're tailoring that one out. All right, so to do again. All right, so now we should hopefully be good to go. So now this should be accurate on what we need to go through here. So I'm going to go ahead and close all of these real quick. All right, perfect. So this is what we're looking at. So 9 under protect, identify 13, govern 18. All right, so protect, not compliant. Platform security here. So hardware is maintained, replaced, and removed with risk. All right. So that is definitely something we need to mark as in progress, not compliant. No documentation currently exists. All right. Saving that. We're moving back to to do. Not compliant. So software is maintained, replaced, and removed with risk. So example 1, perform routine emergency patching within the timeframes specified in the vulnerability management plan. Update container images and deploy new container instances to replace them rather than update existing instances. All right. Words are hard, B-dubs. Replace end-of-life software and service versions with supported maintained versions. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this one open. This is definitely something we need to have in place. So no documentation currently exists. Patch management needs to be addressed. All right. Bam. Save. All right. Moving back over to the to-do section here. So configuration management practices are established and applied. So that's another one where we were just addressing that we don't have a patch management. We don't have a configuration management practices, but that's what we're here for. We're saying, oh, well, let's do our initial compliance check with CSF 2.0. And then we're going to go ahead and take that information, because now we can create POAMs on our planned in action milestones for what the hell we need. So that way we can develop this program out. So this is another one for configuration management practices that needs to be established. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that no documentation currently exists. And that one's marked as in progress now. All right, so not compliant, to do. So DS10, so that is under protect, and then data security functions. So the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of data in use are protected. And you can also see here that these other three here is, so there's data at rest, data in transit, and data in use. And so that's data security 01, 02, and then also 10, which seems a little out of place, you would think. I'm going to have to double check that on the CSF, because that does sound really out of place, actually. So DS 01, 02, and then DS 10 for some reason. All right. And so all three of these different ones we are going to need to implement to some extent as well. So the CIA for data at rest, data in transit, and data in use are protected. And so there's various methods that we could utilize. It looks like we are going to implement some level of VPN requirements in order to access company documentation and so forth. That's going to help a little bit with the confidentiality. We do already have integrity built in, because our file systems, not only do we have version controls, but then also we have audit logs in regards to that as well. And that it does actually base off of the hash value for that file. And that's all logged and tracked on like who accessed what, and then also who changed what. So, bam. So all three of these ones I'm going to go through and apply in progress to. So we are not currently compliant, but we need to become compliant. All right. And so I'm just going to go to each one of these for the data in transit, data at rest, data in use, and mark these as in progress. And if you guys have any questions or otherwise, definitely drop those in chat or and so forth. Also, there's our Discord server. So I am going to do this for about another 9 minutes or so, and then we're going to bring this to an end. We are trying to keep these to about an hour each. Worst case scenario, we can knock out the rest of this tomorrow. So it's not that big of an issue for us to push through it. And then there's a couple things I wanted to showcase here too. All right. Yeah, because you can still see that we have 34 more. All right, so awareness and training function underneath the protect. All right, so ATO2. So individuals in specialized roles are provided with awareness and training so that the process, so that they possess the knowledge and skills to perform relevant tasks with cybersecurity risks in mind. So that is a very important one. So it's talking about role-based awareness training and so forth. So that way, you know, you could see here, provide role-based cybersecurity awareness and training to all of those in specialized roles, including contractors, partners, suppliers, and other third parties. And so I'm actually going to go ahead and copy this right there, and then I'm going to pop this open. This is a really important one. I'm going to mark this as in progress, not compliant. So no existing program exists. Maybe we'll like onboard KnowBe4 or something for this security awareness training. What do you guys think about that? I mean, that's a pretty popular platform. So in progress for our role-based awareness and training, especially for specialized roles. We also got David B popping in chat here. So keep up the great work, all dropping in and bouncing out. Hit that like button. I appreciate you, David. Yeah. Awesome getting David up on the Thursday stage, and then also sometimes he pops up on the Friday AMA. All right, we got that filter applied. This next one, personnel are provided with awareness and training so that they possess the knowledge and skills to perform general tasks with cybersecurity risks in mind. So train personnel to recognize social engineering attempts and other common attacks. Suspicious activity, comply with acceptable use policies, and perform basic cyber hygiene. Yeah, especially if you've seen me in person, please don't be throwing around the sci-hi term. Like, yeah. CMMC also went through trying to utilize the sci-hi, cyber hygiene tier system or whatever you want to call it. And yeah, I think that's kind of a dying thing at this point as far as like sci-hi goes. I do get and value the concept for cyber hygiene, but yeah, I think it really does just track back to best practices. All right, so this is going to be another one in progress. So program needs to be established. In progress. All right, and then we're on to do. This next section, so identify as associations are protected and conveyed and verified. All right, so protect identity that are used to convey authentication and user information between federated systems. That's another thing I want to implement is some form of SSO. A lot of businesses have that. There are both pros and cons to that. Of course, then you have like a centralized location for your identity management, which is, in my opinion, a love-hate relationship. But it would be better to have one really good password and login than to have, a dozen different passwords, or God forbid if they used an insecure password for that. And some services also, I've noticed, some of these services do provide an SSO capability, but then what I find interesting is like they don't have any ability to enforce password requirements on their platform. So like Restream is an example. I believe even CISO Assistant here. So CISO Assistant does have SSO capability, but I don't believe there's a capability to require a password length or requirements. So that of which you could do through your identity management. So that's definitely something that we need to address as well. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that one as not compliant, in progress, save that. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at where we're at here. So we have 13 more under identify and 18 more under govern. So improvement, I'm going to knock out these last two for improvement, and then we'll bring it to an end here. All right, so incident response plans and other cybersecurity. Oh, I just clicked on it on accident. Incident response plans and other cybersecurity plans that affect operations are established, communicated, maintained, and improved. So this is another big one that we need to be in progress. So incident response needs documentation and overall to be established. Brexy popping in on the Discord side, GRC Mafia. Brexy was like helping people out over there in the GRC Mafia chat on Simply Cyber the other day. I had a hard time keeping up. There was a whole bunch of conversation in there. Let's see. Improvements are identified from security tests and exercises, including those done in coordination with suppliers and relevant third parties. So an example of this would be identify improvements for future incident response activities based on findings from incident response assessments. So this could be tabletop exercises, simulations, tests, internal reviews, independent audits. Another example is identify improvements for future business continuity, disaster recovery, incident response activities based on exercises performed in coordination with critical service providers and product suppliers. So this is where we need to, work on tabletops, simulations, have independent audits and so forth as well. So we need to constantly be improving. This isn't a one and done solution. This is definitely something we need to implement. So like maybe once a month or even bi-weekly. I mean, this is something we could do live streaming on YouTube where Study GRC can have a tabletop. Like, what are we going to do if this account gets compromised? What are we going to do if this happens? And we could do different simulations along those lines as well, which is going to help us not only further our documentation and playbooks, but then also thanks to Study GRC being, I would say transparent, nonprofit, community built, community driven. Oh, wow. Look at that. Brexy's on YouTube as well. GRC Mafia. I kind of feel like Brexy's just going to pop up on all the platforms we're on. What, LinkedIn, Twitch, X, and YouTube. Also, something else, I'll announce this later on as well, but I think it was Kick. I was considering also streaming to Kick, just because that seems to be getting more popular as well. There's pretty much all of the platforms we have the ability to stream to. At one point, we were talking about adding on Facebook, but like the requirements, we would have to like make an account, wait 60 days, go through an entire venting process in order to live stream. And we never went through and did that yet. So this is definitely an important one as well. So in progress, not compliant. We need to have that implemented. So implement documentation and policy, including regular tabletop for improvements. Bam, save. All right, now I want to just go through, before we bring this to an end, I want to show, so our to-do remaining is 18 under govern, 11 under identify. Now I was just going to showcase a little bit of what we've done here. So you can see here how we've narrowed this down to what we have for CSF 2.0 as of now. We still need to go through these remaining ones here, but you can see here it's 75%, 80 controls that are not compliant that we do need, that we do want to implement. And so this is for a small nonprofit, mind you. Thankfully, I feel like we have better capability because of our board that we have and the community as a whole. But there's some really interesting stuff here. But then also I wanted to showcase with CISO Assistant, you can also go all the way up at the top. I believe it's under analytics here. You could see as we go through. So we have several big things that are coming through here as well. This is only the beginning. So we also want to go through and do GDPR, CCPA compliance checks. We also want to go through, we'll probably go through the NIST privacy framework as well. So those are a couple of the different things that I plan on doing. Unfortunately, we would not be able to go through ISO live streaming or otherwise. So that would be just with our internal staff and volunteers. B-Dub says, whoa, we are such slackers. Hey, this is the very beginning stage of implementation. So getting our program put together finally. So, baby steps. That's what it comes down to. We're already further along than most companies that are out there. So there are many companies that do not have any program at all. So at least we're making an attempt at this time. But so on the analytics page here, you could see all of this different awesome stuff. And they make it look all pretty and so forth. And it even separates it out. So as we go through different assessments, we go through with different frameworks and so forth, this is just going to fill out with even more and more data, which is really awesome to see. So yeah, it's just going to get more filled out here. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and bring this to an end. If you guys have any additional questions or otherwise, definitely drop those in the Discord server. The link for the Discord server was dropped just a moment ago. But yeah, GRC Mafia. Thank you guys for tuning in and so forth. I'll catch you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. And then also we have our GRC Let's Get Technical on Wednesday at 11. And then we also have our talk on Thursday. So this Thursday is actually going to be with Evan for Cybersecurity on a Shoestring with a ton of resources. And so Thursdays is the only day that we stream at 6 p.m. instead of 11. And that's Central Time. If you guys want more information on that and so forth, the best place to check our schedule is to go to our website, studygrc.org, click on the calendar, and then you can even subscribe to that Google Calendar as well. That's the most up-to-date information on what's coming up. We have some really awesome stuff coming up, not only all the policies and procedures next week, but then also these GRC Let's Get Technical are more hands-on than we've had. Yeah, thanks for tuning in, Cam, Jeffrey, Ben Tech, B-Dubs, Brexy, Rania was in here. David B popped in, Bobby as well over on the LinkedIn side. So GRC Mafia. I'll catch you guys